Hi, I'm Colin. Welcome to Learn Somatics. In today's video, I'm going to take you through the lesson for improving walking. So to begin, we're just going to do a little bit of arch and flatten first, and then we're going to get into the sequence proper. Lay out on your back, knees bent, feet flat like so. And then we're going to inhale to arch the lower back, and then exhale to flatten. And we're just going to do a couple of repetitions like this to ready ourselves for the rest of the sequence. It's always good to start your practice with some arch and flatten before we dive into some of the other movements. Just rolling the pelvis back and forth nice and easily, making sure we've got that nice free movement of the low back. Okay, arching, slowly flattening. All right, so the first movement in the walking sequence is called the vertical dimension of walking, which means basically the action of the hips going up and down. So that's what we're going to address first. Fingers just be on the bony part of the front of your hips here so you can feel the hip bones moving. And all we're going to be doing is gently drawing one hip up toward our armpit while we send the other hip away. And then slowly relax. And now do the opposite movement, sending the opposite hip up and the other hip down. So right now I'm sending my left hip away and my right hip up. And then I'm going to slowly relax and draw my left hip up and my right hip away. And you're just going to go back and forth like this for a while. And you'll notice what this does is it lengthens one leg and shortens the other leg, or draws the other leg up. And this is your vertical dimension of walking. One hip goes up, one hip goes down. This is what happens when we walk. So of course we want to be able to do this movement of the waist and hips so that our walking can be free. So just go along, do this movement back and forth for a time. So you want to do this until it feels smooth at least. Up and down, up and down. Just the hips going up and down. You'll see my head is moving as well. That's fine. You can allow your head to move. You want to feel your whole spine moving, your whole body moving as you go up and down with the legs. Okay, so we're probably getting on for about 20 repetitions there, so we can come to rest. All right, so we've established that we can go up and down with the hips. Let's move on to the next movement, which is the horizontal dimension of walking. And for this, we're going to have our legs bent and feet wide. This is also called walking one. And from here, we're going to let our left knee tip in towards our right foot, like so. And when you do this, you'll feel how your hip rolls up off the floor. So this is the horizontal dimension of walking. If you were standing, this would be the hip traveling forward. And then slowly bring your knee back to standing. And just repeat that a couple of times, letting the knee tip in by allowing the hip to roll up off the floor. And as the left hip goes up, you'll feel a little pressure in the right hip down into the floor. And again, just bring the hips back to the floor and the knee back to standing. And we'll just do this 5 times total with the left knee tipping in. Left knee tips in, left hip rolls up. Then we roll the hip back to the floor to bring the knee to standing. And again, and then back to standing. Nice easy movements, but just notice as the knee tips in and the hip lifts up, the left hip lifts up, the whole left side of the trunk, the back, the waist and the belly has to lengthen so that the hip can travel forward. And back to rest. So this is why it's so important to have good control of the trunk muscles for good movement. The pelvis can't move if the trunk muscles are stiff and tight. Okay, let's go a couple of times on the right side. Right knee tips in, right side of the hip rolls up off the floor. And then roll it back to the start position. And just do that about 5 times. Tipping the right knee in, rolling the right hip up off the floor. The left foot stays planted when you're doing this. So you'll notice as I roll my right knee in, the sole of my left foot stays planted on the table. That's 3. We're going to do 2 more of these. Just gently tipping the right knee in, feeling how the right side of the hip can lift up and the right side of the trunk can lengthen. Right belly, right waist, right back. Good. And we're just going to do 1 more of those tipping that right knee in, and then back to the start position. Okay, now when we walk, we go left foot, right foot. So let's alternate back and forth, the knees tipping in. And we're going to do this for about 10 repetitions. And I want you to notice how all you're really doing is rolling your pelvis side to side to tip your knee in. It doesn't have that much to do with the leg per se. It's the rolling over of the pelvis that allows your knee to tip in. And if you're able to relax your trunk fully or well, you'll find that your knee is able to go either to the floor or close to the floor. And we'll do that one more time each side. Nice and easy. Feels quite nice to do this, just to roll the pelvis and then back to the start position. Okay, so we've covered the vertical dimension of walking and the horizontal dimension of walking. Next up, bring the legs closer together so they're basically in line with the feet are about hip distance apart. And this is walking 2. This one's a little more subtle than the previous one. And all you're going to do, it's the same action of your pelvis rolling side to side, but the feet are closer together, so it feels a little different. So we're going to roll our pelvis to the right a little bit, and you'll feel how it lifts up a little here on the left side, and you'll feel a little bit of weight through your left foot, and the knee travels forward a little bit. And then just slowly come back to rest. And if you need to bring your feet a little closer to your bum for this, that's fine. So again, we're going to roll the pelvis to the right, a little bit of weight through the left foot, left knee travels forward, and you'll feel there's a bit of space created here between the back of your left buttock and the ground. And then again, just slowly come back to rest. Let's do that 3 more times. Rolling the pelvis to the right, a little bit of weight through the left foot, knee travels forward. And just feel it's the same movement of your pelvis, just rolling a bit to the right. And back to the rest. And one more time. And back to rest. All right, now let's see if we can do that on the other leg, or the other side. We're going to roll our pelvis to the left, press through the right foot a little, feel the right knee travel forward. And now you'll feel your left hip presses down a little bit into the floor, and your right hip lifts up a little. And then slowly back to rest. And again, we're going to do this about 5 times on this side. Rolling the pelvis a little bit to the right, sending the right knee forward, the right thigh and knee forward. And again, it's just a nice easy rolling movement. We've got to be relaxed through our trunk to do this. And just notice if this feels more difficult or easier on this side. Okay, back to rest. And just like we did in the previous movement, we want to be able to go back and forth side to side here. So now we're going to see if we can do this left and right alternating, just like we did in the previous movement. Now we're going to send the right knee forward, rolling the pelvis to the left, send the left knee forward, rolling the pelvis to the right. You feel the weight shift in your feet, you feel the pelvis roll side to side. It just has a nice smooth quality once you get the hang of it. So again, go back and forth like this for a while. We'll do about 20 repetitions. Without counting, we're just going to go back and forth for a while. See if we can make it feel easy. Let's keep it nice and low effort, nice and slow. If one side feels a little more difficult than the other, don't worry about it. Just do your best as you go back and forth. Okay. And come to rest. All right, so just take a moment there and let your legs be straight. And if you've done all that slowly and carefully, that should be starting to feel quite a bit more comfortable through the back of your lower back, your pelvis, and into your legs. As well as these movements being good for improving walking, they also make that whole lower back area feel, and the back of the hips feel much better as well. Now, bend one leg, we'll bend our right leg in this case, and we're going to combine the 2 movements of walking together. So now with your left leg straight, right leg bent, you're going to send your right knee forward by lifting the right hip, rolling it to the left a little bit, but you're also going to shorten your left waist a little bit. So you're going to draw your left leg up as you send the right knee forward, and then just relax. So we've got two movements happening now. We're sending the right hip forward as the left hip draws up towards the armpit, combining the vertical and horizontal dimensions of walking. So let's do this a couple of times so we're clear. Sending the right knee forward, right hip lifts up, shortening the left waist, and then slowly release. And again, you'll feel how your right knee travels forward, your left waist shortens. It's a simple movement. Nice, lazy movement. Again, this is part of what happens when we are walking. Okay, like so. All right, now let's switch sides and see if we can do that on the other side. Send the left knee forward, left hip picks up a little bit off the table, and shorten the right waist. Draw the right hip up, and then release. And again, left hip travels forward, right hip gets drawn up towards the armpit. And don't worry if these feel different side to side. They'll even up as you keep practicing. Left hip travels forward, right waist shortens. And see if you can make the two actions happen at the same time. As you send your left knee forward, can your right hip draw up? So your left hip is going forward as your right hip gets drawn up. Just take your time and spend as long as you need to make sense of this movement. Okay. All right, and then two rests. Now, this is the last part, and this is the most challenging bit. We're going to combine those two movements sides to sides together. We're going to alternate back and forth, like so. So we're going to send our right knee forward and draw our left hip up, and then we're going to straighten out our right leg as we draw our left leg up to the bent position, and then we're going to do the other side, sending the left hip forward and the right waist shortening, and then we're going to straighten that leg out. And as you can see, we're just sliding back and forth between the two positions. Left knee, and this is quite a challenge, so take your time. Send your right knee forward, and then start to straighten out your right leg as you bend your left leg until you're switched positions. And you can send the left knee forward, and then switch the legs around, and send your right knee forward, and your left waist shortens, and then switch around, and go on your right knee forward, and then switch around. So as you can see, this is not that easy to do. It's quite challenging. But the more you practice it, the more fluid you will become at it, until you start to get a feeling of the circularity of the hip movements. And then it becomes easier. Okay. All right, and let's use a little trick here. Let's rest, and just rest completely for a couple of seconds, about 10 seconds. Completely forget about it. Just give our brain a little chance to take a break from the activity, from the learning. Okay, and now that you've had a little rest, just start again. See if it doesn't feel a bit easier after having a little break. Okay, and that actually now feels quite a bit smoother. So by giving your brain a little break, you can increase the speed of the learning. Shout out to Huberman Lab podcast for that one. Okay. Alrighty. And then take a rest and just see how that feels. So that should be feeling quite a bit more comfortable through the back of the body now, into the hips and legs. Now that you're done, stand up, have a walk around and see how your walking feels. It should feel quite a bit smoother, quite a bit more fluid and smooth and soft. If you enjoyed that lesson, check out my on-demand video classes in the link in the description below. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.